Look around at the world we are forced to navigate every single day. We are constantly bombarded by the exhausting, toxic lie that your worth is measured by how many people are screaming for your attention. Social media feeds are flooded with highlight reels of massive friend groups, packed weekend plans, and endless group chats pinging every 2 seconds. Society has successfully brainwashed the masses into believing that if your phone isn't blowing up, you are somehow failing at life. We treat a crowded social calendar like a permanent stamp of approval, as if popularity is the ultimate currency of human success. Because of this deeply ingrained conditioning, the moment you step away from the crowd, people lose their minds. If you prefer keeping your circle aggressively small, or choose to have no circle at all, society instantly slaps a label on your forehead. They look at you with pity or suspicion and call you awkward, antisocial, or broken. They act as though wanting peace and quiet is a psychological disorder, whispering behind your back because they simply cannot fathom how someone could survive without needing constant external applause to feel alive. They assume you are miserable just because you are sitting by yourself at a restaurant or spending a Friday night at home instead of getting wasted at a loud club you didn't even want to go to in the first place. Let's completely flip that script right now, because that narrative is entirely backwards. Having few or no friends is not a character flaw, a social failure, or something to be ashamed of. In reality, it is a quiet, powerful badge of honor that only a handful of people ever get to wear. It draws a thick, permanent line in the sand between two entirely different types of human beings. On one side, you have the sheep, the millions of people who are utterly terrified of their own company, desperately begging the world for validation, approval, and scraps of attention just to numb the hollow emptiness inside them. On the other side, you have the few who walk alone. These are the rare individuals who have taken the time to master their own minds. They don't need a cheering section to know who they are, and they certainly don't need a crowd of fake connections to feel secure. They have realized that the loudest people in the room are usually the most insecure, and that true power is found in silence, self-reliance, and absolute peace. Here are the 5 powerful traits that define these people, and why choosing solitude is the ultimate upgrade. Let us be completely honest about how most people survive day-to-day life. From the time we are kids, we are fed a quiet, poisonous lie that standing out is dangerous. We are taught that to be safe, liked, and accepted, we need to blend in with the background. Because of this, the vast majority of people walk through life absolutely terrified of their own shadow. They spend every waking hour bending over backward, contorting their personalities, and shape-shifting just to fit into whatever room they happen to walk into. If they are around loud people, they act loud. If they are around a certain crowd with specific tastes, they instantly adopt those tastes, even if they secretly hate them. They trade away pieces of their soul, their true opinions, and their actual desires every single day, all for the cheap, temporary high of social acceptance. They become total strangers to themselves just to make sure nobody looks at them sideways. When you have few or no friends, you completely opt out of that exhausting psychological theater. You simply do not have the time, the patience, or the energy to wear masks, play political games, or pretend to care about vapid small talk and trends that bore you to tears. While other people are frantically checking to see what is popular so they can copy it, You are looking inward and tuning into your own frequency. You follow your own internal compass, speak your absolute truth even when your voice shakes, and live life strictly on your own terms. You wear what you want, think what you want, and care about what genuinely lights a fire in your chest. You stop apologizing for liking weird things, for wanting deep conversations instead of shallow gossip, or for simply preferring your own company over fake interactions. People who do not understand this will look at you and call it social awkwardness, but they are just projecting their own insecurities. They cannot fathom how someone can walk into a room and not care about being liked by everyone. But what they call awkwardness is actually raw, unadulterated authenticity. It is the rare, terrifying freedom of a person who would rather be completely disliked for who they truly are than loved for someone they had to invent. When you stop chasing the approval of a crowd, you finally meet the only person who actually matters, your real self. Let us talk about what happens when the noise finally stops and the crowd goes home. Most people are completely, utterly terrified of silence. They have become so dependent on constant distraction that a single quiet evening feels like torture. Strip away their phone, turn off the television, pull out the background music, and trap them in an empty room by themselves for just a few hours, and you will watch them completely unravel. Panic sets in almost instantly. Their minds race, anxiety takes over, and they start crawling out of their skin because the silence forces them to listen to the one thing they spend their entire lives running away from: themselves. They cannot sit alone with their own thoughts for even 5 minutes without feeling utterly lost, empty, and invisible. To survive this inner void, they rely on a constant drip of external stimulation. They need people around them 24/7. They need endless opinions from friends, family, co-workers, and strangers on the internet to tell them what to think, how to feel, and what choices to make. They cannot make a single major life decision, buying a car, changing a job, or ending a relationship, without running it past 5 different people to beg for approval and validation. They are entirely paralyzed by self-doubt, treating other people like crutches because they are convinced their legs will break the second they try to stand on their own. They mistake being surrounded by bodies for being strong, completely blind to the fact that they are emotionally fragile and completely dependent on everyone else just to feel like they exist. When you walk your own path and keep your circle small, you break that addiction entirely. You put yourself through the fire of solitude, and on the other side of it, you forge an unbreakable armor of fierce independence. Because you don't have a crowd of people rushing to save you, coddle you, or make decisions for you, you learn how to handle life with your own 2 hands. When a crisis hits, you don't panic or text 10 different people looking for someone to vent to. You sit down, look the problem dead in the eye, and figure out a solution yourself. You take absolute, unapologetic ownership of your life, your mistakes, and your victories. You carry the full weight of your world on your shoulders, and instead of crushing you, that weight turns into steel. You stop waiting for permission to live the life you actually want. You no longer care if your choices align with what your family expects, what your peers think is cool, or what society deems acceptable. You move through the world with a quiet, unshakable confidence because you have learned the ultimate truth about human survival. You do not need anyone else to hold you up. True freedom isn't about having a massive network of people surrounding you, waiting for your text messages, or cheering for your every move. True freedom is the profound, life-altering realization that you can lose everyone, stand entirely alone in the middle of a storm, and still know deep down in your bones that you have everything you need inside yourself to survive, adapt, and completely thrive. People on the outside looking in will always throw the exact same cheap label at you when they see your quiet life. They will call you arrogant, snobby, cold, or antisocial, acting as though you think you are better than everyone else just because you don't answer every text within 2 seconds or show up to every pointless social gathering. But let us be completely direct. What they call arrogance, is simply basic, non-negotiable quality control. Having a microscopic circle or no circle at all doesn't mean you look down on human beings. It means you have finally grown up enough to realize that your peace, your energy, and your time are the most valuable assets you own, and you refuse to hand them over to just anyone who asks for them. You would rather sit in a quiet room with 0 people than spend a single miserable minute entertaining toxic drama, fake laughter, and energy vampires, just to avoid the temporary discomfort of being by yourself. Think for a moment about how the average person operates in the modern social landscape. Most people treat friendships like cheap trading cards, collecting as many shallow, hollow connections as they possibly can just to pad their stats and look popular on a screen. They fill their lives with endless gossip, backstabbing, superficial small talk, and energy-draining drama. Why do they do it? Not because they actually like these people, but out of a pathetic, bone-deep terror of loneliness. They are so desperately afraid of sitting with their own thoughts for an evening that they will surround themselves with absolute human garbage just to avoid hearing the silence in their own heads. They accept miserable treatment, fake smiles, and one-sided friendships because having someone around, anyone at all, feels safer to them than standing alone. You look at that chaotic circus and you completely refuse to participate. Instead, you treat your social life with the exact same precision and standards as a Michelin star kitchen. A world-class chef does not crowd their workspace with expired ingredients, cheap filler products, and rotting vegetables just to make the kitchen look full. They throw out the garbage, clear the counters, and keep only a tiny handful of absolute highest quality ingredients that actually elevate the dish. That is exactly how you manage your life and your boundaries. You demand loyalty, depth, emotional maturity, and genuine respect. If a person cannot bring those qualities to the table, you don't adjust your standards to make them comfortable. You politely or permanently lock the door. This hyperselectivity means your phone might not buzz every 5 minutes, and your weekend schedule might look quiet to an outsider. But take a close look at the alternative. Would you rather have 100 superficial acquaintances who would drop you the second things get difficult? Or would you rather have absolute peace of mind? You have realized that a long list of fake contacts is actually a liability, not an asset. Having high standards for who gets access to your time isn't a social failure. It is the ultimate form of self-respect. You are guarding your inner peace like a fortress, and nothing, especially not someone else's boring drama, is worth letting down the gates. Let us look honestly at the psychological condition of the modern masses. If you stripped away everything external from the average person, their phone, their social media apps, the endless stream of news, podcasts, background noise, and superficial opinions, what would actually be left? For most people, the terrifying answer is absolutely nothing. They are completely hollow on the inside because they have outsourced their entire existence to the outside world. Their minds are permanently rented out to viral trends, breaking news headlines, celebrity drama, and algorithmic distractions designed to keep them too busy to think. They spend every waking second reacting to what everyone else is doing, saying, or buying. Ask them who they actually are underneath all those rented opinions, and they will stare at you blankly. They have no core identity, no internal foundation, and no self-awareness because they have never spent 5 consecutive minutes looking inward. They are empty vessels floating like debris on whatever cultural river happens to be rushing past them at the moment. When you walk your own path and embrace solitude, your reality is entirely the opposite. Because you aren't drowning in a sea of external noise, you organically develop a rich, complex, deeply fascinating inner universe. You unlock the rarest superpower available in today's overstimulated world: true self-reflection. While other people panic at the thought of a quiet moment, you find peace in it. You possess the uncommon ability to sit calmly with your own thoughts, face your inner demons, and look your flaws dead in the eye without letting them destroy your self-worth. You don't run away from your mistakes or hide from your shortcomings. You examine them like a scientist studying data. You ask yourself the brutal questions. Why did I react that way? What am I afraid of? Where do I need to improve? You take your own mind apart, clean the gears, put it back together, and actively engineer your own personal evolution. This level of deep introspection changes the entire way you navigate existence. While everyone else is desperately looking outward for life answers, asking internet strangers how to live, chasing gurus for validation, and buying into quick-fix self-help trends that never actually work, you realize a profound truth. You understand that the deepest wisdom, the most bulletproof clarity, and the ultimate answers to your life are never found out there in the noise. They are born exclusively in the quiet, undisturbed space of your own mind. You can trace your own motives, master your own emotions, and chart your own course with a level of emotional intelligence that leaves the rest of the world behind. You don't need validation from a crowd because your internal world is a fortress that no amount of chaos can breach. Let us shatter one of the biggest, most damaging myths society loves to push: the lie that isolation is a punishment, a curse, or a sign that something is fundamentally broken in your life. The exact opposite is true. Solitude is not a jail cell. It is an elite incubator for greatness. If you study history, philosophy, science, and art, you will quickly discover a striking, undeniable pattern. The people who actually changed the world, the writers, inventors, philosophers, and visionaries who left a permanent mark on human history, were almost never social butterflies. They weren't spending every weekend at parties, chasing trends, or trying to win popularity contests. They were deliberate, unapologetic loners. They intentionally locked themselves away from the noise of society, retreating into silence so they could use their solitude to sharpen their minds into razor-sharp tools. They knew that you cannot build anything extraordinary while standing in the middle of a screaming crowd. While the vast majority of the population stays permanently trapped in pathetic, shallow loops of mindless conformity and instant gratification, you are quietly playing an entirely different game. You are playing the long game, and the results are terrifyingly effective. While everyone else is wasting hours scrolling through feeds, chasing cheap dopamine hits, and letting their brains turn to mush, you are investing every single ounce of your alone time into building something unbreakable. You are building emotional intelligence that lets you stay calm in a crisis, mental resilience that refuses to let failure break you, and an undeniable wisdom that only comes from deep, uninterrupted reflection. You are constantly upgrading your internal operating system, while everyone else is stuck on the exact same software they had 10 years ago. When you finally look up from your own growth and glance back at the modern world, your perspective completely changes. You realize that you are looking down at the frantic, chaotic circus of the crowd from the top of a mountain of your own making. You see people stressing over petty drama, fighting for the approval of strangers who don't care about them, and panicking over every little cultural shift. And from your elevation, you feel completely unfazed by it all. The noise of the world simply cannot reach you up there because you have built a life of substance, purpose, and unshakable power. So if this entire breakdown hit home for you, If you felt every single word echoing deep inside your chest, stop apologizing for your small circle. Stop feeling guilty because your phone isn't ringing off the hook. And stop wondering if there is something wrong with you just because you prefer quiet over chaos. You aren't falling behind in life. You aren't missing out on anything real. You are simply evolving past the noise, leaving the shallow masses far behind, and stepping into the truest, strongest version of yourself.